every early stage entrepreneur or startup faces, and that is effective writing of grant application, or how to enhance the prospect of winning a funding for their startup. To address this key challenging topic, today we have two eminent speakers with us from BIRAC. BIRAC, which is a Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council. It is a public sector enterprise.
Hello, Shraddha. Sorry to interrupt. Can you just hold your paper down? Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, so BIRAC, which is a Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, it is a public sector enterprise set up by Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. The vision of the BIRAC is to strengthen and empower the early stage emerging startups and entrepreneurs pertaining to healthcare, biotechnology, agriculture sector. So without much delay, I will first introduce to our first speaker, Dr. Shirshendu Mukherjee. So today, the agenda of this entire Power Hour session is we have two sessions. First one is on key elements of grant writing, which would be taken by Dr. Shirshendu Mukherjee. And the second session, which is on various opportunities available from BIRAC. That would be addressed by Dr. Sanjay Saxena. So our first speaker, Dr. Shirshendu Mukherjee, welcome, sir. He is trained as a medical microbiologist, which brings him more than 25 years of experience in academic institute, pharma industry, and a decade-long experience in national, international, philanthropic, and government funding agencies. He has been instrumental in supporting the innovation ecosystem in India and beyond. Dr. Mukherjee is currently the Mission Director of the Grand Challenges India, which is a flagship program of the partnership between Department of Biotechnology, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Wellcome Trust. Support initiative that could dramatically change the health and development landscape in India. He also heads the Intellectual Property, Technology Transfer, and Communication Division in BIRAC. In addition to above responsibility, Dr. Mukherjee also leads the National Health Authority Startup Grand Challenges program from BIRAC. Welcome, Dr. Mukherjee, and over to you, sir, for the key elements of grant writing session.
Thank you, Shraddha. Thank you, Koini. Am I audible to everybody and clear in my
Yes, sir.
sound, everything? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Shraddha. Thank you, Koini. And okay. And I will, after some time, I will switch off my video too, so that we can fine. So I bring you greetings from the chairperson BIRAC, Dr. Sarup, and MD BIRAC, Madam Anjuballa, my colleague and myself, Sanjay, and myself, along with team of Sonali and Aarti, will be talking to you in the next couple of hours to tell you about what are the salient features of grant writing. And then I think Sanjay will play a very important role. Actually, Sanjay used to go first, but this time we accommodated. I have a meeting following this as well. So Sanjay was very kind enough to exchange us all. Sanjay used to tell initially what are the possible funding opportunities available to you all, and then I used to tell how to target these to effective grant writing. But Sanjay holds the check and investment portfolio in BIRAC, so he's more important than me because he's the person who ultimately gives you the grant. I'm the person who tells you how to write grant applications. So in the next couple of in the next hour and a half or max 2 hours, we'll talk to you about various strategies you should apply to write grant applications, and then how to target various funding programs and elements, and take you to the next level. So that is the idea of talking to you today. We initially planned this workshop sometimes in February, early March in Mumbai, and my colleagues Sonali and Aarti had worked very hard with Shraddha and her team, Koini and everybody, to do it physically there. So what the protocol we follow is we run. Sanjay gives the opening talk on what are the programs. I do grant writing. Then Aarti and Sonali run a very good, sort of practical workshop where you are giving a grant application. You fill that grant application in an hour and a half, and then you present the grant application, and then we look at what was lacking, what should be more. But we assure you that once the situation normalizes, we definitely, myself, Sanjay, and my colleagues will come over to Mumbai and definitely do 80% grant writing workshop, which I think will be really helpful to you all. But so to say, we try to talk to you today in next this part, what we feel could be the key elements and important issues of grant writing and what are the key funding sources BIRAC has so that you know, improve. Shraddha, will you be presenting my slides? Shraddha? So till the slides comes up, and I think we'll talk to you. And don't worry, don't take notes. We'll try to send you the slides in a abridged format. Shraddha will do it once in time. So first disclaimer is this is what we are going to see in next hour and a half. Is not what you call SOP or standard that if you follow me you will get a grant. That is a disclaimer. This is what we are going to talk to you in next. So is our experience in what we should look at the grant applications and how grant application should be written so that it can we I'm working in the funding agency almost for 2 decades now, so we have almost look at 1,000 applications a year. So we are the gatekeepers basically. So as a gatekeeper, we look at applications, what should come out well, what should we have more trust onto it, and things. But these are some of our experience we are going to share to you. But this is not a study fast tool that if you follow me, you will get the grants. But at least these are some of the way forward to it. Next slide, please. So this is what I just said, that there is no grantsmanship that will turn a bad idea into a good one, but there are many ways to disguise a good idea, and that is what we are going to talk to you. That there are very many ways where if it is an interesting idea, innovative idea, very thoughtful idea, has strong science into it, has a very strong science which can be validated strongly, which has a strong unmet need, which has a really a good business option built into it. But if you don't write it well, don't express it well, don't formulate your strategies well, then the good idea might not be expressed well in a paper. Mind you, when you submit a grant application, you are not physically coming for an interview at the first instance. You are writing something in a couple of pages of paper and submitting to agency who know you, who don't know you as well, who you are unknown to them because they receive number of applications. So your paper should speak to you what and how your application looks like. Those who have attended our grant writing workshops and clinics, I always give one very important example. I think in our younger ages, we have listened to fairy tales. And the fairy tales used to start, I believe all of us have heard fairy tales in our younger days. Our parents used to tell us when we used to go to sleep and things like that. So it always used to start with, a sentence called Once Upon a Time. It used to start like that, and then we were used to forced to read the next sentence of the fairy tale because it became so interesting, sentence by sentence, sentence by sentence, and and it used to end. The last line always used to be happily lived ever after. So we were forced to read the next sentence, next sentence, next sentence. So I think the grant has a very similar analogy. I think you should literally force the reviewers, the funding agencies to read your application and the next line. So I think this is one of the very important elements when you start thinking of a project. You should really think about a story around that project and what that story looks like, what's that theme looks like, and how it works. I think that is a very important element when you start conceptualizing your grant application, when you start looking at the problem which you are going to solve and for which you are raising fund, has to be brought into that level. Next slide, please. So taking that analogy in mind, and this slide takes me around 2 to 4 minutes to explain you this slide. And remember this is the very basis of starting the grant application. Time is limited, so I think you can park your questions, or if you have something, you can type in the chat boxes. I'll take up as soon as I finish it. Sanjay has given me around 30 to 35 minutes to speak, so I will try to finish that and take the questions. So when you start thinking of writing, let us sit back and think, when we start thinking of writing a grant application, especially in the field which we are in, life sciences, medical devices, medical technologies, drug discovery, or vaccine, or diagnostics, or agriculture, anything, your research has to be in one of these three fields. That is, either it has to be a discovery research or a basic research you are working on. Development research, we might call it a translational research, or a delivery research, we also call it a validation research when you do clinical trials, validation, post-marketing surveillance, marketing surveillance, taking out. I think you can use whatever word you want to use in that first discovery, development, delivery. So when you, if you are in, and you have to be, you generally will have to be in one of these spots. Either you are a basic researcher, or a translational researcher, or a delivery researcher, or a scale up, or what you call a validation. So when you start thinking, and I will take only one parallel of it to describe you, and then you can think of the rest of the things. And so, for example, you are trying for, say, BIRAC's initial grant, say, big grant, or whatever, or maybe any other funding agencies, any other basic grant. So you are starting from, say, some ignition thoughts. So how to start from there? And when you start thinking of raising funds in that space, you need to really understand the problem first. You need to understand the problem in the sense that what problem you are trying, what is the scientific relevance of the problem? From where, what is the background research has already, what papers have been published? What IPs have been filed? What is the unmet need you are going to target? Has any other person targeted that unmet need globally or in India or anywhere else? And these days, all the informations are available. So, you need to really debate on that space. I'll give you a very simple example of it. For example, you are trying to work in a, say, problem of diabetes or cardiovascular disorders. Let us take non-communicable. So if you see these spaces, entire world is working around tackling these problems, trying to prevent infarctions, trying to prevent cardiac diseases, prevent cardiovascular disorders, trying to prevent diabetes. So a lot of groups around, and this is a problem not only of this part of this world where they live, but throughout the world, this is the problem. So what happens is, we call in our research parlance, this is a very congested research areas. Congested, that doesn't mean you should stop working on that space. No, I'm not telling you that. But the thing is that here you have to be really on the top of it. What you are thinking has to be very unique, very novel, scientifically very strong, so that you can compete with those places, those people. You might be strong, definitely you should do it. Or for example, you are working on, say, problems like malaria, Al-Azhar, leishmaniasis, something like that, which is a problem of this part of the world where not many big players are working. There it might be a less congested place. So your challenges in that place might be different. So I am challenging you with these questions. Reason being, when you start thinking of a problem which you are going to put it into the grant application, you should think of all these in a holistic way. That who are my competitors? Who are the competitive researchers? Who are the competitive companies? Who are the competitive space you are working on? Competition should not push you back to work on that space. No, but that should push you to achieve bigger heights. That's what I'm telling you. And that should come out from the first grant application which you start thinking in. Am I able to explain you how you should start working on it? Actually, when we do live classes, it is very easy to see faces, and you can understand how people are responding and reacting to it. Then you can make it out. And I generally ask them to stop me whenever they have any questions. But right now we are doing virtually, so that becomes a bit challenging. But I'll continue speaking, and then if you want, I will stop in between for 2-3 minutes, and then I'll come back again. Then comes the question of as we are all working in a very competitive field, we would like our research, our science to go to a level. Either you do it or somebody else does it, that is not immaterial. But how you should take the research to the next level. Next level doesn't mean that your product has to be in the market. No. But it goes to the next level if you are doing a basic research, how it can be validated further. Either you file an IP, license it to a small company, large company, mid-cap company, or you take it to the next level. So that will happen only if there is some market pull, or what some non-commercial indications you should find. Whether when you file an IP, what a research report should look like. So some like that of research or a SWOT analysis again you should do within yourself to understand the process. So if you see that analogy which I gave you in the very beginning, that to compare it with a fairy tale. So your story is slowly building up. You firstly designed unmet need, the scientific challenge, what is the science. Then you came to the next link. If the science is good, the challenge it has a scientific unmet need. How you link it with the market and market-driven elements, that how you should take it for IP, more further validation. So I think your story is building up. Then comes how risky is your program. You should really do that analysis, that what are the major risks. All funding agencies would like to understand from you what are the risks involved in your program. We generally talk about what are the positives, but always talk about when you are doing a program, what are the risk elements. Sorry, what are the risky elements into the program, and how you should take forward there. So you really need to be, understand that what are the, and you should tell upfront that these are the risks, and this is how I'm going to, challenge that risk and take it to the next level. That really shows to the funding agency that this application has understood the problem, understood what are the elements which are driving those problems in the market or in the academic scenario or in the scientific scenario. What are the risks involved? And finally, infrastructure. That is very important, because when you, for example, you want to do a research and some infrastructure is not, funding agencies will fund all the infrastructure which you need. That is not possible. For example, pH meter you have some other small equipments is not a big issue. There's a lot of that is. But for example, your research requires a mass spec or a fermenter, or say a 3D printing. 3D printing these days are given out, or bigger 3D printing, much higher version or something like that. It is not always advisable to build for a small program big equipment. They have all limits. Some funding agency will give you 30% for equipment. Some agency will give you 40% for the equipment. And Sanjay, when he speaks about it, will give you some details on what are the BIRAC strategies in giving what amount of equipment, the manpower, and other things. So infrastructure, for example, you require some big infrastructure to do this research. You should always tell upfront. And I'm not. I work in this organization. I need this infrastructure, this equipment, but I don't want. I'm not billing into the budget. Why my organization has it? I will get a timeshare from that and use it. Or if your organization doesn't have it, what you should say that, okay, I don't have it, but an institute or a CRO 10 kilometers away from my organization has it. I will buy some time from them and get my sample analyzed from there. This builds more confidence when you read the application. I think when you start thinking about a problem, about a thing, I think you should challenge yourself, not only you, but you should build a community around you. Especially your well-wishers, your friends who are of course your well-wishers, not your enemies, but your well-wishers, your friends, your mentors, your guides should all talk together and brainstorm this, and then you should really come out with mind it, and take my words that you will definitely try your proposal. When it is written fully, you will yourself feel it is polished so well. Okay. So I will not be taking the other elements of it because of the time constraint, but I think whichever path, for example, you are working on a translational space, you have got an initial grant to do your discovery research, you are moving to a development phase or scale up phase or a translational phase. There are different sets of questions you need to answer in that space. You're in a product development phase, so you need to understand the market. What should the product look like? How the product can be used? What are the challenges in the existing products? You should really define that into the system. Then you will come across with IP issues, regulatory issues. IP issues should be upfront. That you did a prior art search. There are a lot of free databases available these days, and a lot of incubators have their in-house IP cell. I think Coini has a very good IP cell at SINE. I think if you use there, or all the incubators have it, or BIRAC has a scheme which I think Sanjay will again speak about it, called PATH scheme. Our funded programs, we really fund through that IP scheme. I think you should get those things built into it and understand that space. But tell us that these are the possible IPs which are there in this field, but my innovation is very different from there, and I will have some freedom to operate in that space. Similarly, regulatory pathways, which are going to challenge, define that and tell us that this is the guidelines. Again, I think Sanjay will speak to you. BIRAC has a very vibrant regulatory cell, which is very hands-on. We run a first hub session every Friday, I think, first Friday of the month, where you can come and follow. So I think the relative enabling mechanism have been really put in place to really support your innovation to take it forward. But again, as I said, and the statement which I made initially, not my statement, the first statement in the slide was that you have to convert your idea into a presentable, readable format. Did I make some sense? If yes, type it in a chat box that you have some sense out of it. I will move to the next slide in the meantime. Next slide, please. Now we come into the next slide, which shows you the various funding pathways available globally as well as in India. Now, if you are, and you should target the right funding pathways whenever. Thanks, Akash. The right funding pathways when you are trying to put in on applications in place. For example, generally the initial part of the research, you can't go and ask a bank to fund it or a venture capital to fund it. You have to go to an agency which really takes risk to fund it. And organizations like BIRAC, government agencies are really into it, which really fund initial research, which are high risk research, basically, where you are putting in a proof of concept in place. There are various programs of BIRAC, the Gantt challenges, the Health Trust, and there are various programs you can do a lot of such. I'm not going to talk about the thing, but Sanjay has a detailed presentation on that. So, you need to really look at which pot of money you should target. And I can tell you examples. We bring out a scheme, and if you don't read the scheme document well, a lot of wrong applications come in. What happens is after 2 months, you will get a small soft reply from the funding agency that your application doesn't fit or remit into our scheme, so it is turned down. Or they will not. So whose time is lost? This is your time is lost. But try to target if it is in a basic research space or it has a high risk funding, I think you should target government agencies to fund philanthropic grants. If it is in an applied space, there are a lot of other grants which are available, especially government now is there and other grants. But when you move about the value chain, when you are about to reach the market, you will see a lot of people running around you, behind you, like the venture funds will come to you if it is really innovative products, or private equity funds, and a lot of funds will be there. I'm not going to describe all of that. But the idea of this, showing you this slide, is that you should really target the right funding place, the right funding pot, the right RFP for your proposals. Next slide. So once your science is ready, everything is ready, how should you start with? You should do a thorough research in all funding bodies available which are funding in this area. Look at their website, talk to people who have got funding from those agencies, and talk to them. How was their experience? What was the process? To do a strong research in the fund. These funding agencies have, BIRAC, I can vouch for, has email address, phone line. You can call them, talk to the program officers, that this is what my thing is and how I should target, how is it eligible for this scheme. I think you do a as we do thorough due diligence of your project, you also should do a thorough due diligence on your on the funding bodies which are going to fund you. You should really do a thorough due diligence on the research and prospective funding bodies which you are going to apply, to whom you are going to apply. So, and then target your application. So you will see that your comfort level, your confidence level will go up drastically because you are quite sound in your proposal, and then you have done a good research on your funding bodies as well. So your confidence level. Don't disclose about your innovation to anybody, but there are ways you can talk to people and get which is the right funding initiative to target. Target funding source that has interest in your organization and programs. Look at that. Have they funded your group or your colleague or any earlier also? What was the? So I think what happens in our funding programs as well. If we have funded X group or X institute or X body, and some other person from that same body applies, our confidence on that group also increases if the other person has done well. So I think this vice versa. So you should do that as well when you take forward. Next slide, please. And again, following from my earlier side, what are the current trends? What are the limitations? How they fund? What they don't fund? What are the future plans? Are they innovative in their funding approach? Who are the decision makers? What type of reviews they ask for? These some information you will get off from the website. Some of the information you will not get from your website, but you do your due diligence. The person who has applied earlier, who had got funding, some of the questions and review things will be answered by them also. So I think the idea is you should know the funding agent body whom you are approaching very, very thoroughly. Next slide. What are the deadlines of submission? How long will it take the process? Now here, deadline for the submission. A very good advice or a very noble advice I'll give you. Please follow that very carefully. Never wait for the last day to submit your applications. We have found out, and Sanjay, Aarti, and Sonali are there in the call. They will vouch for me here. Maximum applications come on the last day, and that too in the last hour. Initially, we used to keep 11:55 midnight, but now that was a problem. We all has to be awake by that time. So now we have kept 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But maximum applications start coming at 1 o'clock. And what happens? Your computer will break down that time. Your internet connectivity will go down. You will find a lot of things because when you do a last minute job, a lot of things fail out. So never wait for the deadline of submission. All calls are generally open for 45 days. It's ample time for you to do work. Your internet will broke, your hard disk will crash, your laptop will not start. You will have lots of problems if you wait for the last day, and I've seen, this is our experience. We have been given this advice to everybody, but the maximum application comes, or if it is on the last day, it will come on the last day, and that too in the last hour. अगर आखिरी दिन में भी सुबह 7-8 बजे आप जमा कर दो तो you are comfortable, but that too अगर 2 बजे हमारा application close हो रहा है, people will start putting it in at 1 o'clock and then 2 o'clock because we are audited. We can't accept applications which are 1 minute beyond the time. And then 2:01 पे application आया, then you start writing mail to Sanjay, to other colleagues that sir, it was only 2 minutes delayed, 5 minutes delayed, please accept it. We have no chance of accepting it. Then you start writing the people, not you, when people start writing the higher ups and things like that, but nothing can be done. It is locked means it is locked. So follow this advice very, very clearly that don't submit your application on the last day. You have ample time to do it. So do it properly, comfortably, ठंडे दिमाग से submit करोगे आप, so I think things will go absolutely to the point. You should understand from the funding agency's cycle, what is the time cycle? What are the cycle times from the date of your submission to the date of awarding the grant? That will help you to plan your research. That will help you to program your planning for a year in advance. So I think a lot of funding agencies, we all take 4 to 6 months maximum. That is the average time any funding agencies take to give out the proposals. But it depends upon various other factors as well. Sometimes you go to submit papers, sometimes there are some due diligence issues, so that varies. But I think you should have an idea with what is the proper way to approach them. A lot of funding agencies have open calls. We have a product commercialization grant, which is an open call. You can submit anytime. But there are, and again, I think Sanjay will speak about it. There are a lot of other schemes which has deadlines. So I think you should follow that. How many people apply? These are statistics which are available. Most answers can be found in the websites, but I think it can be, you need to really do it from Google. Next slide, please. I'm conscious of the time, so I'll move fast now. Otherwise, Sanjay's time will get eaten up. Now, how to approach the proposal? What is the review process? So you should always, now I'll give you some tips. Don't, I'll not go with the slides flow. You should understand that your proposal, apart from the funding agencies, officers, or program managers, or anybody, will be read by 3 to 7 reviewers. Okay. Now, every reviewer has a, generally the funding agencies try to target a proposal to be read. We do a 360-degree review of a proposal. What do you mean by 360-degree review? 360-degree review means two of the 3 reviewers or 4 reviewers will be a strong scientific reviewers, which look at the science. One might be a business reviewer, which looks at the business element of it, or exit strategy, or how and one might be some programmatic reviewer, how it can be moved. So your application flair should be such that every person, when he reads, brings out the sense of that. And how to do that? First and foremost, your English language should be really good. And you should start first and foremost, what is there to, when you start writing the proposal is the title. Am I right? The title is the first part when you think of your grant application. And that is a very important part of your application. If your title is not good, not attractive, a lot of times you might have, it is a very stereotyped title. A lot of time we have faced, and I'm not joking, the first 2 sentences of your objectives, a lot of people cut and paste and make this at the time. We are all human beings. When we start reading your title, I read your title, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, Y, Z, it is suppose your title. Your title finishes. I start reading the objective, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, again the same thing is repeated. What I will say, that you have cut pasted it, or you have just copied it, you have not thought about creating a new innovative title. You should really talk about, and titles are not framed off just like that. You must be thinking of 50, 100 titles, and then you can select one. That is why you say you should really talk about it, talk to your friends, your good friends, your family, or your mentors, and think about the titles. And your title should not be more than 12 to 14 words. Remember that the title should not be more than 12 to 14 words. That I am going to stress. And it should be really a good title, and title should catch what you are writing in your proposal. For example, Alice in Wonderland is a fairy tale. When you read the title, you know that Alice was in Wonderland. That is the story. Similarly, when you write the title of your scientific grant, you should be spot on what is coming in the grant application. That is the first thing you should remember when you write the title. Second thing, your English. I don't want you all to become English teachers or something like that when you write a grant, but at least clean English should be there. You use your punctuations, comma, full stops at the right places, not too big sentences. We have seen, full of paragraphs without a full stop or a comma. Then it becomes a very, very, and I will advise you one more thing. If you are the writer or the author of your grant application, what you should do, you should write the grant application and ask somebody else, your colleague, good colleague, of course, I'm always repeating the word, your good friend, good colleague, your mentor, your family, your wife, or your grown-up children, if you have, ask them to read it and ask them to make, because what happens is when you have written it and you continuously read it, you can't catch the mistakes. But if some third eye reads it, he or she will definitely catch the mistakes. So that is always a good idea to give to some next person to read your grant application. That is very, very important, and that really will help you, mind it, to help you to improve uh, your application. Then the first part of the application is generally the abstract or the objective, which is again a very key element. Why? Because that will sum up the entire proposal. And these days, all of our projects are in online project program. So you have 200 words or 300 words or 150 words, you should write it. So you have to be very careful in writing it so that you can summarize what is the project. For example, I'll give you a very rough example. Example in the sense that, for example, you are trying to express certain protein in a certain cell and trying to produce that important protein to develop a diagnostic protein or a therapeutic or a vaccine. So you should start with 2 sentences or 3 sentences, depending upon the word restrictions. What is the problem? Why this is the problem? That is the unmet need. What is your solution to that problem? And what is the next step you plan? That should be the crisp abstract you are putting into the application. Very crisp abstract. So by reading that, we at the grant funding agency or the reviewer will have a very clear picture of your way forward in that and very well defined. Am I making some sense? Next slide, please. Then come your milestones on the application. Thank you. Then comes your milestones of the application. Milestones mean what are you going to do in first 3 months or first 6 months or first 8 months, whatever you define depending on the project, and they have to be smart. Smart means specific, measurable, appropriate, realistic, and time bound. You have to define your milestones in such a way that they are smart. I'll give you an example here again of smart and unsmart milestone. Firstly, I'll take a smart milestone. Smart milestone will be that in next 4 months, I'm going to express an X protein into this cell system, each cell or whatever cell you have, to try to produce this many milligrams or this many amount of protein per liter of broth. Or I'm going to design a device, or my prototype of the device, I will first alpha prototype I will make to see whether this works. Or I'll do a 3D printing of an alpha prototype, which can really mimic an original prototype and see whether it can. These are called smart milestones, which is specific. You have defined the specificity. It is measurable. We can measure it at the end of 4 or 6 months. It is appropriate. It is realistic. You can feel that. And it is time bound. Very simple. Never overestimate or underestimate a milestone. If it takes, for example, if you are using a bacterial system, it takes 24 hours to double. Let it double in 24 hours. Don't ask it to double in 15 hours or don't ask to double in 36 hours. It will not, bacteria will not listen to you and follow you. And you build a buffer space and define a milestone. So you will always be specific. Unspecific milestones are what? You write, next 4 months, I will hire my project staff. I will whitewash the lab room. I will, order reviews of literature, or I will order some equipment. These are not at all, maybe some additional subsequent parallel work plan, but not milestones. A lot of people do that way, that they write such things in the milestone. So you could feel what the specific and unspecific milestone is, to define that. And when you move slowly into these grant application processes, your confidence level in the system will go up. And in the process, you will yourself feel comfortable when you go to defend this project, or when you go to talk about this project in any of the platforms. You will yourself feel more comfortable. Next slide, please. These are list of common shortcomings. I will not go in detail of this. There is no evidence of proposal succeeding, others have failed. You know, if a principle or scientific rationale doesn't work, it doesn't work. Don't try to repeat it and submit a proposal on that basis. A new idea is claimed, but without sufficient technical information and know-how. If next is, we have a lot of time seen, you don't do good review of literature of the existing science or unmet need, not unaware of the related research. You don't know what research has already been done. Badly presented, I just defined. So these, I'll not go by all details of this, but I think that these are very, very, common things which all of us do. We have done it when we were in the beginners. We have done it. Nothing, galti karke aadmi seekhta hai. So I think we all have done, but I think slowly that is the idea of interacting with you all today. So how we can improve, all of us improve together to take the next step. Next slide, please. So 10 things you must remember. Find the right program, that what I'll describe to you. The RFAs which the grant agencies bring out, you should go and read it by heart, line by line, point by point, word by word. You should read what is excluded, what is included, whether my science fits into it or not. Otherwise, what happens is 2 months down the line, you will get a small email that this doesn't fit into the remit. Timelines, understand criteria used to evaluate proposals, understand the review process, write the proposal logically and clearly. I explained you, prepare the budget. Budget, very important thing. I have a slide on that in the later part of my presentation, but I'll talk to you right now here. I don't know whether I will be able to reach that part because it's already 4:45. So budget, never under budget, never over budget. Never think that a funding agency will fund you if you under budget a proposal. You will fall into a trap, because if you under budgeted and you don't get the project, and then you don't able to run the project, you will be blamed. You have to have a rational approach. All funding agencies do a strong cost challenge. It is all comes out from there. For example, salaries. You have to hire a JRF or a SRF or a RA. There are fixed salary norms. You should not think of hiring a JRA in 10,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees. What is the salary he needs, which has been built into the system? There are proposals, there are guidelines for that. Accordingly, you hire and you tell the funding agencies. Funding agencies ask for such documents and they will. So I never under budget a project. That's what my idea is. Fill out the forms completely and correctly. Read many times before you send it to them. Next slide, please. Poorly written, I just described you. Lack of focus, too diffuse, pitfalls. I think same thing I described you. Next slide. So these, I'll quickly go through the formats in 5-7 minutes and then I'll stop. Next slide. So there are various times. So there are some of the applications ask you for concept note submission, which is 2-pager. You submit that, and then they'll ask you to submit a full proposal. Some ask full proposals, so 10 to 40 pages, depending upon where you are. And so you have to, be always there. One point I will like to highlight here is, when you write your grant application, there are phases where you have to define the people who will run the project, the curriculum vitae, their experience. Please highlight that very quickly. Why you are suitable to run this project, what scientific or business or relative experience you have, you should put there into the proposals. But if you're hiring a consultant, for example, IP consultant, you don't have to hire them full time once and when you need it. So you should write that you are going to work with this consultant. Regulatory consultant, put their company's name or put a CV. If need be, I will get their consultancy done and you will build it into the project. So I think you need to define your team well. Basically, what I mean to say is, again, that will help you to, for the funding agency to understand you better. Next slide, please. So I think these are the what I just described you. Key personnel, you should take a method. Now, table of contents, you should always see that what you are submitting in the application. The abstract I described you how it should look at. Problem or the need statement. Why you are doing this research? What are the gaps and what you are trying to work? Don't worry. This is a science you are doing. These are risky projects. You may be good at your science or bad at your science, but you should describe it well. Methodology, key persons. You should really be with the references cited very clearly where you have read. You should be as elaborative as possible. Okay, next slide. I will not go through it. I have defined you very well on the abstract. Next slide. Problem statement also, I described you well that how you should read it, how you should elaborate it, and give graph statements wherever needs some data, add addendums to it. Next slide. Don't have too many goals in your research proposals. That really spoils. Be focused. Be focused in this. Don't build too many things, too many indications, too many outcomes, or too many. Funding agencies generally get with literally with what you call they will feel that the PI doesn't have a clear understanding or way forward. So I think you need to be very thoughtful, have one or two goals, and say that if I achieve this goal, I'll go to the next goal. Generally, the right of follow-on funding rests with the first funding agencies. So I think you should really walk through one goal at a time to take it to the next level. Okay, next slide. I have described you the objectives also. So next slide. Personals, I told you that we should describe it very well into the programs, and we should really define whose expertise is what, and try to build here again a 360-degree team around yourself. That is what I would like to stress here. A 360-degree team means if you are good at science, if you are an engineer, you should try to bring in a complementary expertise into your group. You need a business person, try to bring a business. It's not necessary that he becomes a co-PI or something like that. You can hire him as a consultant or something like that, or advisor or something, and bring it into the project, pay for his time. Similarly, if you need, say, a design person, a regulatory person, or a person with some different expertise, so to say, in the program, which you don't have, try to build a team around yourself and sell that to the funding agency. Believe me, you will be moving very, we will be looked at a very positive way by any funding agencies. Next slide. Budget I described, never under budget, never over budget. What is right? Generally, we ask for quotes and things like that. So if you give under budgeting, doesn't mean that you will get funded. You need to have a right budget, because that will help you to run the program well, and you will be confident in doing it. So never under budget your programs. Go to the next slide. Editing, as I told you, leave one day aside. Give a couple of people to read and edit it. No use of jargon, no first person that I have done it, or this is a program. Edit, clarity, you give to somebody who can read it well and edit it for you. I told you, you don't edit yourself. Give it to your close friend or your mentor or your family or a wife or anybody who can read it and help you to improve and point out your mistakes and bring the proposal well. Next slide. English is important. I will not teach you English here. English is, you have to submit all grant application in English. So you have to be very, very clear in explaining them. So you have to really do that in a proper way. So be careful about that. Next slide. I think this should be my last slide. So I just told you the very beginning, 1 hour before the grant needs to go, the copy, initially this is a very old slide, the copier breaks down, so but you can't send it on time. So this is what never do that, never send it in the last moment. You have sufficient time to submit, do it well within the time. Next slide, I think I'm almost coming to my end. Why reason fails, I don't have to describe. Poorly written, mechanical defects. Next slide. Sometimes, if you submit a proposal and it gets knocked out in the review process, generally we all give you very good reviewers comments. Some of you will take it very positively and incorporate that reviewer comments and submit it back to the funding agency. And I think 60 to 70% of the time I have seen, if you have taken it positively and have revised it and come back, you get funded. It's not always necessary that you will get funded, but a lot of time I have seen they have got it funded, or because it helps us. Some of the people take it very negatively, so I'll not comment on that. But if you take those and come back, I think a lot of time you get funded. Your possibility of your funded being very high. Next slide. This is one of the examples I wanted to talk to you. This is model, but I will stop here right now. and I will when I physically come, I will explain you this. I think one more slide is there after this. This is what your application should be, very, very complete in all respects. As I told you, a 360-degree thing. You should, when you submit your application, you should look at all these angles, and you will be really be very positive in moving it. Then my last slide, I think next should be my last. Next, please. So this is not my slide. I have got from somebody else. This is a, you know what, comparison between a good and a bad grant application. You can very well compare looking at it. I'll not describe it to you, how a good application looks like, and how not a good one looks like. I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, I don't know, because Sanjay has to start speaking, but I will be happy. I'm here. You can post chat box, or you can email me in this number or call us up. I will be happy to talk to you. But I will look forward to seeing you when we all go to Mumbai to do a physical workshop whenever the time permits us to do it. But I once again thank you for your patient hearing. I don't know whether it was useful or not, but I thank once again the Sanjay and his team for this chance, and I thank Koini and Koini's team, Chauhan and everybody there at SINE for allowing me to speak here. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Dr. Shirshendu. It was really useful. I was also hearing this through the entire session, and you could see the retention of the participants also. So it was really useful. I'll hand it over to Shraddha. Shraddha, you might be in mute. Please take over.
Yeah, Dr. Mukherjee, we have received a couple of questions in a chat box. Like a person is asking about the IP filing process in India, the cost and time, and the international respect, or like what would be the international view of a particular technology which is going to be patented.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's related.
Hello? Yeah.
But,
So,
you give answer to that.
Yeah, I actually that is not pertaining to the workshop, but I can answer the IP filing process in India, and Sanjay will also speak about the BIRAC's IP filing process for funded projects from BIRAC. Last couple of years it has been very simplified, and any new innovation which comes out through an IP, you can visit the website of the Indian Patent Office, and there are various steps on filing of IP. So what happens is you file an IP. There is a first step is if you file a provisional specification to that IP, which is a very simple English you write and what you want to. So you get a priority date. For example, 1st January you file IP, you get a date of filing that IP. You have 1 year to complete your specifications and file your full applications. Then there are various mechanisms to file to one application. You can enter lot of other countries as well as a PCT, which is called it, that which is a bit costly affair. You can file a PCT for that country, and then after 18 months, so 12 months is your first filing, and then 18 months, and 30 months you can enter national phases of any country. So in India, tentatively the filing cost ranges from around 30 to 50,000 rupees, but when you go internationally, the filing cost goes up. If you are interested in understanding more IP, BIRAC is going to conduct an IP webinar shortly. I think the dates will be announced this week or early next week. Keep a look at our website. I think we are going to do an IP webinar with a couple of legal luminaries. You can definitely join that. It's also free of cost.
Thank you, sir. There is also another question from a participant, like a health tech startup like Practo. Is it a relevant application to apply for the BIG grant?
I think Sanjay will be the right person to answer that, looking at the various funding requirements which is needed for a particular grant application. I think definitely Sanjay. Yeah.
I would suggest that if we could kindly wait for my presentation to be completed, because there is a strong possibility that this query may get answered.
Absolutely.
The presentation is done.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure, sir. There is another request that is from your presentation that what are the key reasons why the application proposals got rejected? So can we go back to that slide briefly?
Yeah, if time permits, definitely we can go back to Sanjay. I've already eaten 10 minutes of Sanjay's time. So I can briefly tell you right now why, what is Sanjay?
No problem. Take your time, sir. No issues.
Okay. So I think the various reasons why the application gets rejected, don't go to the slide. I can tell you. First, while reading your application, you can't bring out what is the scientific relevance or what is the science behind it. Second, what is the unmet need you are trying? I told you a congested place. If your science is not addressing those relevance, that is this. If I take the technical aspect of rejections, these are the couple of important things: that the scientific relevance, the unmet need address, the the not a. Then come to the presentation part of it. If you have not written it properly, the flow is not proper. The milestones are not well defined. What is your exit strategy? I didn't speak about that. The exit strategy means if we fund you for 18 months or 24 months or 36 months, whatever it is. So these are all structured funding. One milestone, you get next tranche of money. So once this project ends, all funding agencies would like to know what is your exit strategy, what is your next step. Of course, it will depend upon the science which you are doing. But if the science is okay, so you should also tell us that if this results are good, what is your next step? So these are a couple of reasons why if it doesn't come out in the grant application. These are the reasons. Apart from many other reasons, I think these are the reasons where application.
Except some more would be covered in the talk.
Yeah. Sure.
Sure. So,
Shraddha, over to you.
Dr. Shirshendu Mukherjee for a very detailed session on granting key elements of effective grant writing. And now we will move to the next session, which is by Dr. Our next speaker, Dr. Sanjay. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, I was not able to hear you. Losing your voice.
I think it is.
Now it's better. Again.
BIRAC, public sector set up by the DBT. His prime responsibility in it pertains to the grant management under various funding schemes such as Small Business Innovation Research Initiative, which is SIBRI. The another scheme is BIP and the PACE scheme. And also the Social Innovation Program for products affordable and relevant to societal health, which is a SPOR scheme of BIRAC. So over to you, sir. Very warm welcome. And we will next hear Dr. Sanjay Saxena.
Thank you, Dr. Shraddha. Thank you so much. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, sir. Very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. So, a very good evening to all of you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about some of the funding opportunities that BIRAC offers through its various funding schemes. May I request, Shraddha, if somebody could move the slides for me?
Yes, sir. The slides are visible. Yeah.
Thanks. So before I come to what BIRAC does and what are the funding opportunities and other enabling opportunities it offers for the benefit of the participants, as you are all aware, that Indian biotech market is really galloping now. From 44 billion in 2017, it is expected to touch more than 100 billion in 2025. And these figures are now being revised, and a strong possibility that this may go beyond 125 or so. So one has to wait and see. But yes, things are moving in the right direction and there are lots and lots of opportunities coming in our way. Next slide, please. As you are all aware that biotech sector is extremely challenging. If somebody wants to set up his own enterprise, element of risk is extremely high if you compare it with other sectors. The gestation period is also long. Success rate is relatively low if you compare it with other sectors, but yes, it's highly rewarding. You know what is happening in the pharmaceutical sector, that if you come up with a new molecule, what kind of returns it can give you. Although I do agree that the success rate is low, yet it's highly rewarding. So taking all these factors into account, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India decided to set up BIRAC, which is Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, as a Section 8 not-for-profit company in 2012. Now, what exactly BIRAC does? It supports the startups, entrepreneurs, and SMEs to develop innovative, affordable biotechnological products and technologies. In addition to this, uh, like it, funding is one aspect of it. In addition to funding, it also provides various other facilities in terms of incubation space, mentorship, recognition, networking, so on and so forth. What are the areas do we really support? It's practically every aspect of biotechnology, ranging from healthcare to agriculture to industrial biotechnology, waste management, sanitation, so on and so forth. So that way, BIRAC covers a wide gamut of biotechnological aspects. Can I have the next slide, please? Although there is a lot that BIRAC does, and it is practically impossible to cover everything in 45 minutes or so. So that's why in this particular talk, I'm going to focus more on the funding schemes that BIRAC operates. This is both for early stage research as well as for late stage research. Rest of the other facilities that BIRAC provides, I'm going to touch upon, but we will get into the details of it. So more or less the focus would be on the funding opportunity. The next slide, please. So far as funding assistance from BIRAC is concerned, we support individuals, startups, SMEs, biotech companies, institutions, universities, NGOs, so on and so forth. So if you would see practically anyone, whether in the form of an enterprise or an individual or working in an academic institution, can get financial assistance from BIRAC. There are different schemes which target different sections, different sectors, and I'm going to discuss about it. And it also doesn't matter at what stage of product development you are. You may be just at the ideation stage or at the early stage of research or at the pre-commercialization. There are different schemes available which have been tailor-made to address the needs of various stages of product development. Next slide. This gives a snapshot of various funding schemes. As you would notice, from ideation stage right up to the market. So we have got schemes like BIG, which is for generation of idea to generation of proof of concept. SIBRI and Seed Fund takes care of early stage research. And then once a prototype has been developed or some kind of early research has been completed and you want to go for validation, then there are schemes like BIPP or LEAF Fund. And once the validation has been done and you want to enter the market, that's the pre-commercialization stage. Then we have programs like products commercialization program, which will help, which provide all kind of assistance to the grantees to take their products to the market. In addition to those who have already set up their own enterprise, even the academia, if they are interested in undertaking applied research, or if there is something that they have already developed and want to take it to the market through industry, there are schemes available that they can avail. And this is what we discuss in the subsequent slide. Next slide, please. I start with a big scheme, what is known as the Biotechnology Innovation Grant Scheme. It is basically to foster generation of ideas with commercialization potential. That's the first stage when you are not too sure as to what exactly are you going to do. You are still starting around looking for good ideas. So just at the early stage, if you have something very interesting which has a commercialization potential, and you are looking for some kind of support to generate a proof of concept, this is the scheme under which you can seek support. So the scheme encourages research to take their ideas, to set up their enterprise, take it to um, generation of proof of concept. There are two calls in a year, on 1st of January and 1st of July. So far, 17 calls for proposals have already been announced. This year, because of COVID pandemic, the announcement of the call was deferred by a month. So the 17th call for proposal was announced on 1st of August 2020. The call will remain open for 45 days. And under this scheme, the recipient gets up to 50 lakhs of rupees for the research project for a duration of 18 months. The scheme is basically managed through 88 big partners. So, the funds from BIRAC go to these big partners, and these partners then work with the grantees and provide them with the necessary mentoring, reviewing, monitoring, networking, etc., and guide them for other business development related activities. So the funds from BIRAC do not go to the grantees directly, they are routed through the big partners. Next slide, please. Now, who are eligible to apply under this scheme? As I mentioned, that both individual and company can apply under the big scheme. So far as individuals are concerned, it could be students, academicians, scientists. As an individual, they can apply. The requirement is that, yeah, they could be PhDs, pursuing PhD, BTech, etc., etc. You can go to the website and refer to the scheme document for more details. Won't go into the finer points here because of the paucity of time. And so far as the companies are concerned, it is important that the company must be registered under the Indian Companies Act of 2000. And the incorporation date should not be earlier than 5 years from the date of closing of the particular big one. Now, this is a very important aspect that must be looked into. Another thing which must be kept in mind is that either the company either should have its own R&D facility, which is functional and adequate to execute the project, and if not, then the company should be incubated in a recognized incubator where necessary facilities are available to execute the project. Next slide, please. Now, this is an advertisement which appeared in the newspaper just few days back. As I said, the 17th call of PIC is already on, and under the scheme, proposals are invited in the area of healthcare, life sciences, diagnostics, agriculture, waste management, so on and so forth. So here there is an opportunity. Those who are interested, the call is still open, and you can take advantage of it. Next slide, please. These are some of the major achievements made under the biggest scheme. So far, more than 6,000 proposals have been received under the 16 calls that have so far been announced. In fact, in the last call, more than 500 proposals were received. So that gives you an idea about the popularity of the scheme. More than 500 projects have so far been supported, which have resulted in creation of more than 125 new startups. 120 IPs have been filed, and in addition to that, the interesting part is 50 plus products have been developed. And out of 500 projects that were supported under this scheme, 75 of them received follow-on funding. Now, what this follow-on funding is, I am going to discuss more in detail at a later stage. Basically, it is that big is for early stage research for generation of POC. Now, after generation of proof of concept, you would like to move further. So if you have performed well under the big scheme, there are opportunities available through SIPRI and BIPP scheme. You can take your product further. So it all depends if you have come up with good results and the review committee is satisfied with the progress of the outcome of the project, it may recommend your project for the next stage, that is either SIPI or BIBP, depending upon the level of research at which you end under the big project. Next slide, please. Now, I4, which is intensifying the impact of industrial innovation, is a new scheme. Although you would be aware that SIPRI, which is a small business innovation research initiative, and BIPP, which is Biotechnology Industry Partnership Program, have been in existence for a long time. So the two schemes have been brought under one umbrella called I4, and this is something which was launched only this year from 1st of January 2020. So I4 basically is the overall scheme, and under this we have got two programs, SIPRI and BIPP. Now, both the programs have a lot of similarity. The only difference here is that while SIPRI supports early stage research, BIPP focuses more on validation, demonstration, and pre-commercialization of products and technologies. As a result, in SIPRI, the endpoint of the study is TRL6 or below. Now, TRL, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with the terms, refers to technology readiness level. So, lower the TRL level, that shows that you are still not mature to enter the market. So, higher the TRL, higher or closer you are to hit the market. So TRL3 is in most cases, because it varies depending upon the thematic area under which the proposal has been submitted. But usually TRL3 is generation of proof of concept, and up to TRL6 is the early stage validation maximum. But TRL7 is the true validation, and after that, that is TRL8 and 9, you move to pre-commercialization and commercialization. Now, so far as SIPRI is concerned, maybe I'm going to discuss more in detail, but still, one important feature here is that till 1st of January 2020, we used to give only 80% of the grant if the total cost of the project was 25 lakhs. So if it was 25 lakhs, 20 lakhs will come from BIRAC as grant, and remaining 5 lakhs would be contributed by the applicant. But from this year onwards, up to 50 lakhs, it is 100% grant. And beyond 50 lakhs, the cost is shared equally. So to give you an example, if the total project cost is 100 lakhs, 75 lakhs will come from BIRAC as grant, and remaining 25 would be the contribution of the industrial park. Now, in addition to the industrial partner, in case if it's a collaborative project which also involves an academia, then the cost towards academia is again borne by BIRAC. So suppose if there is a company which has got IIT as a collaborator, and the project cost is 100 lakhs, so it would be, as I mentioned, 75 lakhs will come from BIRAC and 25 lakhs from the applicant company. But if IIT or any academic institution is a partner and their budget is about 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs, then the total costs of the project becomes 140. So out of this 140, 75 lakhs to the industry would again be BIRAC contribution, and entire 40 lakhs to the academia would be, the cost would be borne by BIRAC. And the industry would be required to make only make a contribution of only 25 lakhs. Now in BIPP things are a little different because this is at an advanced stage and closer to the commercialization. So irrespective of the amount, the project cost, the cost is shared equally between BIRAC and the applicant company. So it is 50-50 irrespective of the amount. In both the cases, there is no ceiling so far as the budget is concerned. It could be any amount. Next slide. Now, let me give you some more details about the SIPRI scheme. This was the first scheme launched under public-private partnership by DBT way back in 2005. At that time, initially it was managed by Department of Biotechnology, and thereafter it was BCL which was managing the show. But ever since BIRAC came into existence in 2012, the scheme was transferred to BIRAC, and since then BIRAC is running this scheme. So there are 3 calls for proposals in a year, and they are announced in the month of February, June, and October. And there are 2 types of calls that we announce, so which alternate. So like last time, the call was a regular one. A regular call means that the applicant decides on a research problem, and they have the option to submit a proposal on any problem which interests them. We do not put any riders. But whenever there is a challenge call, then in such cases, we identify the priority areas in different thematic areas of biotechnology, and the applicant needs to submit the research proposal only in those priority areas. They don't get the freedom, they do not get the freedom to work in other area, to submit a proposal in other subjects. Just now a message was flashed. Are you able to hear me clearly? There was a request about the audio problem.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah, no problem, because the message was flashed on the screen. That's why I'm posing this. Anyhow, and as I mentioned, there is no ceiling with regard to the total cost of the project. We move on to the next slide, please. Okay, this is something I have already explained it to you, that in SIBRI, up to 50 lakhs, 100% of the project cost is borne by BIRAC in the form of grant, and more than 50 lakhs, it is 50 lakhs plus 50% of the amount that exceeds 50 lakhs. In collaborative projects involving academia, the entire cost is borne by BIRAC, which is over and above the amount which is indicated here. Next slide, please. Okay, these are some of the areas that we usually cover in our calls, like drugs, biopharmaceuticals and regenerative medicines, including stem cells, vaccines, devices and diagnostics, agriculture, industrial biotechnology, secondary agriculture, bioinformatics, so on and so forth. So as you would notice that practically all aspects of biotechnology are covered under this scheme. The scheme has been in operation for almost 15 years, and so far, nearly 300 projects, 294 to be precise, have already been supported under this scheme, out of which roughly 20-25% were the collaborative one, because this is one of the intentions behind that we should have more collaboration in these research projects, so that the outcome is to the expectations. And roughly 25% of the projects supported were collaborative in nature. A commitment of 272 crores was made, and yeah, the scheme has resulted in development of several products and technologies and IP. Nearly 44 projects which were supported under this scheme got follow-on funding, that is moving to the BIPP scheme, which is the next stage. Next slide, please. Okay, BIPP is the scheme which was launched 4 years after the launching of SIBRI scheme. And this is, as I said, is primarily meant for validation, scaling, and commercializing the high-risk innovations. So you have two options, that you can either avail the SIBRI scheme and then move on to BIPP, or you can directly apply under the BIPP scheme, depending upon the level of innovation at which you are. In both BIPP and SIBRI, the IP rights rest with the industry, so BIRAC does not make any claim on the rights that are IP rights which emerge or which are generated as a consequence of the research study. So IP rights will remain with the grantee. Now this is important, and I thought I must share this with you. Okay, as in SIBRI, this is something we have covered. We move on to the next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that this is for the advanced stage, and these are the different categories within BIPP under which the proposals could be submitted. So, we have got category 1, which focuses more on product development, which have got major social relevance, but there is an uncertainty of demand. Then high risk under category 2. And I would like to draw your attention to 3A and 3B, which are related to clinical trials and agricultural field trials. So under this BIPP scheme, funds are made available for clinical trials, for vaccine and other products that you may have developed and you want to test them out on a larger scale before hitting the market. This is the scheme under which the funds are made available. In addition to clinical trials and agricultural field trials, under this scheme, a few research facilities have also been established. And this is the only category under which the funds are provided in the form of a loan, not in the form of grant. Otherwise, in rest of the categories, in all other categories, the funds are provided in the form of grant in aid. Next slide, please. Yeah, under this scheme, so far more than 210 projects have been supported, which have resulted in development of 49 products and technologies, and more than 8 facilities, as I mentioned to you earlier, have been created, and 32 IPs generated. Now, on the left-hand side gives you an idea about the different thematic areas and the percentage of ongoing projects, but this is highly dynamic, keeps on changing, because in every call, the kind of projects, the new projects get added, the earlier ones get completed and move out of this. So this figure keeps on changing. But yeah, as you would notice, in practically all the categories, be it industrial, vaccine, drugs, and devices, it varies somewhere between 15 to 20%. Next slide, please. Now, this is one thing which we have introduced from 1st of January 2020. Earlier, the royalty component was applicable only to BIPP scheme. But with effect from the start of this calendar year, irrespective of the scheme, may it be big, may it be SIBRI or PIPP, royalty at the rate of 5% of the annual net sales of the product. See, 5% of annual net sales of the product developed through BIRAC support is payable to BIRAC. And this royalty amount or the first payment shall fall due beginning with the first sale of the product, and the liability of the royalty payment will terminate once the amount paid becomes equal to the amount of the granted aid disbursed. So I'm sure there would be some questions which we can take up later on, because this is a major change that has been introduced from this year. Next slide, please. Now, PACE, what we call it as a promoting academic research conversion to enterprise, is one of the schemes which is primarily meant for the academia. Under this scheme, there are two components. One is the academic innovation research, what we call it as AIR, and the contract research scheme. Now, the AIR scheme promotes development of proof of concept for a process or a product by academia. Now, that's where the difference is. In SIBRI and BIPP are the two schemes which are primarily meant for the industry or the small enterprises. Here, a scheme is primarily meant for academia, academic institutions. However, if there is a need and the project demands, then there is an option available of involving industry in the project, but it is not mandatory. Now, contract research scheme aims at validating the process or a prototype developed by the academia, by the industrial partner. Now, here, which is, now as you could make out, here is the early stage, and the end point of here is TRL3. What is the proof of concept? Under CRS, TRL3, or the end point of here is the starting point of CRS scheme. So if you have already come up with a prototype or a product or a technology and you want to get it validated, because validation is a must. Without validation, you can't enter the market. And this is one of the major problems experienced by the academicians, that they feel that they find it difficult to enter the market on their own and they need the help of some industry. So this contract research scheme provides an opportunity. So if you have got something good in your lab, you want to get it validated, involve an industrial partner who will do the validation part. We will discuss more about it. Next slide, please. So far as AIR is concerned, projects with well-established proof of principle leading to development of prototype or a product of national or commercial importance are only supported. So it's important that projects which pertain to only basic research, I'm afraid, will not get selected for support. If you are more into basic research, it is desirable that you approach DBT or other funding agencies. But so far as BIRAC is concerned, it is important to have a proof of principle when you submit the proposal. Basic or exploratory research without proof of principle has no chance of getting supported by BIRAC. Another limitation of AIR scheme is that the duration is fixed. There is no scope for extension. of course, presently there are some exceptional situations which has emerged because of COVID. But usually, under normal circumstances, the duration of the project would be of 18 months, and the project cost will will not exceed 50 lakhs, out of which the non-recurring component cannot exceed more than 10% of the total cost of the project. To give you an example, if your total cost of the project is 40 lakhs, the non-recurring component cannot exceed 4 lakhs. So this scheme is not meant for, creating infrastructure. I am sorry, because it is assumed when this scheme was conceived, it was assumed that the primary applicant already has the desired infrastructure, both in terms of equipment and the technical expertise to execute the project. And the 10% of the non-recurring cost is basically for purchase of a small equipment that might be needed to execute the project. So far as the IP rights are concerned, it will remain with the academia, but in case the project has been submitted jointly with an industry, then the IP rights may be shared between academia and industry as per the guidelines of the applicant institution. BIRAC is not going to have any say in this. Suppose a proposal is submitted by IIT along with, say, some Tata company, so it's between IIT and the company to take a call that who's going to have the IP rights and how these rights will be shared. We are not going to say anything in that. So this is entirely decided by the policy of the uh, academic institution, which is the primary applicant. Next slide, please. Now, who can apply? Who could be the applicant here? So far as I mentioned, academia is the primary applicant, and the applicant institute could be a university, could be an NGO or a research foundation. The important part is it should have a well-established support system for the research project or the study that it wants to undertake, and it can apply either individually or along with an industrial partner. Now, if you are involving an industrial partner, please ensure that it is an Indian company, because foreign companies are not supported under any of the BIRAC schemes. So, irrespective of whether it is AIR or BIP or SIPRI, only Indian companies which are registered under the Indian Companies Act 2013 and have at least 51% Indian shareholding. So it should be a company which is managed or controlled by an Indian. And I may further add here, when we say an Indian, it is the Indian passport holder. Next slide, please. All right, this is something we have already covered. Move on to the next slide, please. In CRS also, it is the same situation. The only difference between AIR and CRS is that CRS is primarily for validation, and involvement of an industrial partner is a must. And so far as the IP rights are concerned, although it will remain with the academia, but the industry would have the first right for refusal. So the partnering company, once you have, which is involved in validating your technology, will always have the first right for refusal. So far as the impact of the scheme is concerned, more than 100 projects have so far been supported, which involves 85 academic institutes and 33 companies. Now, unlike BIP and SIPRI, in AIR, since the endpoint is TRL3, and with CRS2, you can't have too many products or technologies being developed and hitting the market, because this is primarily meant for early stage or mid stage research, not for the final release. Even then, 7 technologies and products have come out of it. Next slide, please. For the benefit of those who are interested in submitting a proposal under BIP, SIPRI, or PACE, there is a combined call, and I would like to inform the audience here that all the calls, whether it is BIP, SIPRI, or PACE, we always announce a combined call. And a call for the three schemes is already on, and this will remain open till 31st of August. 5:30 p.m. is the deadline. However, this is not a regular call. This is a challenge call, so you are requested to kindly refer to the RFP for the details on the priority areas under which the proposals have been solicited this time. Don't submit proposals which have not been invited and which are not in accordance to the priority areas identified by us. There is a strong possibility that they will get rejected outrightly at the first stage of a screening. So it's important that before you submit the proposal, please refer to the RFP document available on BIRAC website before you submit the proposal. Next slide, please. All right, this is regarding the eligibility of the companies, and we have already talked about it, that the companies need to be registered under the Companies Act of 2013. For last couple of years, we have introduced this option of limited liability partnership. That is, the LLPs are also eligible to apply under this scheme. This option was not available earlier, but has now been implemented from this year. Next slide, please. Now, what kind of projects are supported under various categories? In here, it is the end point of the study must be TRL 3. So anything which is going to likely to get financial support under ARS. TRL 3 is the bare minimum requirement for a air project. And my humble request to all the applicants that please don't start or don't put a literature survey and setting up a lab, etc., as your first technical milestone. Now that simply indicates that you don't have anything at this stage. You have not generated proof of principle, and a strong possibility that it will get rejected. In SIPRI, the endpoint must be TRL 6, and for BIPP and CRL, the endpoint is TRL 7 and above. So these are the requirements. Kindly keep them in mind when you submit the proposal. So these are some of the aspects that we would be looking into. We mean the expert committee which would be evaluating the projects. That if the end point of the study is not at the desired level, the chances of getting financial support get significantly reduced. Next slide, please. I'm a little fast now. Okay, we will not get into it. Next slide, please. It's already 5:40. Okay, SPERSH is the Social Innovation Program of BIRAC. And this came into being in 2013, and it has got two components actually. One is the product development, and second is the Social Innovation Immersion Program. Now, this slide gives you an idea about the kind of products that we had been supporting in the area. So far, 8 calls have been announced under this push for product development, and the themes covered include maternal and child health, aging and health, soil and plant health, waste to value, etc. Under this scheme, so far 58 projects have been supported, which have resulted in generation of 5 IPs. And
there are some of the products displayed here. You can visit BIRAC website and gather more information, not only about the products that have been developed through BIRAC under research scheme, but all the products under various schemes that have been developed through BIRAC support can be viewed and referred by visiting BIRAC website. Next slide, please. As I said, that Sparsh has got two components. One is the product development. The second component is the social innovation immersion program. Now, this is a very interesting scheme. Unlike BIPP or SIBRI, this is primarily meant for the beginners. So if you are not sure, you are not even sure about the idea as to what exactly you want to pursue, under this program, in the first 5 months, you are attached to a Sparsh center. You move around, visit meet various people. If you are interested in working on a problem related to medicines or healthcare, you can visit various hospitals, talk to various doctors, so on and so forth. And after 5 months, you would be expected to come up with three or four research ideas, and with the help of Tata Institute of Social Sciences and technical experts. This is our knowledge partner. Along with the technical experts, we help you to identify the research problem that you should be pursuing. And another 10 months are given to you to develop the prototype or develop a technology. And at the end of 18 months, you are almost ready with some kind of a prototype or a technology, and you stand a good chance of seeking further support from BIRAC, either under BIG or under SIBRI. So depending upon how much progress you have made, in 2019, that's last year, we announced a call, and early this year, we have established 14 research centers. Each center has got 5 fellows. We very recently, in fact, last month only, we completed the interview process, and 70 fellows have joined this program. Each fellow would receive 50,000 rupees per month as the fellowship. In addition, they also get a mini kickstart grant of 5 lakh rupees. Besides getting continuous support, both technical and other kind of mentoring from the Sparsh Center, these Sparsh fellows also receive guidance from time to time through Tata Institute of Social Sciences, as well as BIRAC and technical experts. So this is an interesting program, but I'm afraid, we finished up with the interviews and we finalized from 1st of August, they have joined the program. So maybe even when the next call is announced, those who are interested can avail this. Next slide, please. I'm going to take another 5-10 minutes, and after that, I'm going to stop and open it for question and answers. Now, coming down to the evaluation and the decision making process, Dr. Mukherjee has already given you a fair idea, but I may just mention to you, I think there is some problem with the slide. That's not the way it was prepared, but it's preparing slightly differently. The companies, all the proposals are submitted online. So the company or the applicant has to register itself on the BIRAC website, and after completing the relevant information, you do the final submission. And as Dr. Mukherjee pointed out earlier, please do not wait for the last day and the last moment, because when there is too much of pressure on the site, there could be technical issues emerging. So submission, my earnest request to you, please submit your proposals well in time, not waiting for the last day. Otherwise, there are problems emerging at the last moment. Next slide, please. Now, once the proposal has been received, it is sent to the subject experts who review the project, and each proposal goes to several subject experts. It doesn't go to one. The findings or the observations of the subject experts is then presented in the area review panel, which may have 15, 20 experts. The area review panel then takes a call. There are 4 area review panels that we operate. One relates to healthcare, especially devices and diagnostics. The other one takes care of drugs, drug delivery, biosimilar, stem cell, etc. The third one pertains to agriculture, veterinary sciences, and aquaculture. And the fourth one on environment, energy, and secondary agriculture. So the area review panel will, on the basis of the comments received from the experts, take a view and decide on the proposals to be called for presentation before the technical expert committee. Based on the presentation, wherein the committee members would like to develop a complete understanding of your project, the committee takes a call which proposal to be considered for a site visit, because this is very important. After presentation, there is a technical site visit carried out, and this site visit involves both technical expert as well as the financial experts. While technical experts would look into the kind of infrastructure available at the project site, along with the infrastructure in terms of equipment, working space, technical competence of the team, number of members, so on and so forth. The financial experts would look into the financial health of the company and the ability of the company to put its contribution to execute the project. So far as the criteria for, okay, one more thing. If your project gets recommended by the site visit experts, then finally it is reviewed by the apex committee, which is chaired by the chairperson, Department of Biotechnology, along with other members. So it is the apex committee which takes a final call on supporting a research project. And once the project has been approved, you are requested to sign a grant letter agreement and complete other formalities, then the funds are disbursed. So, some of the factors that are taken into account while evaluating the proposal have already been discussed earlier by the previous presenter. But I would also like to mention that in addition to what was said, there are certain things which you must keep in mind besides the scientific merit, innovation, social relevance. Commercial potential is something which is looked into by the committee members very strongly. So in the early stage research, there is a possibility that you may not be asked to submit a business plan, but definitely you would be asked, the committee would look into what kind of potential the product or the technology that comes as a consequence of the research study would have once it hits the market. So this aspect should be kept in mind very strongly. Another thing that I would like to mention here, that many a times the applicants feel that they should not reveal everything because their idea may be stolen and all that. See, please keep this in mind, that the committee members and the subject experts will be able to evaluate the proposal only on the basis of what you include in the proposal. If you do not share the details, we are not expecting you to share all the details which are confidential, but definitely do include as much data that you have been able to generate through your early stage research, that convinces the committee members that yes, the applicant has already done something and they are not starting from the scratch. This will really go in your favor. But if you try to conceal, you try to hide everything, I'm sorry, the committee members would form a totally different opinion. So please keep this in mind. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the broad parameters that are taken into account for evaluation. We have already discussed them. The scientific merit, methodology, innovation level, societal and commercial potential, investigator credentials, and the adequacy of research. Now, the last point I would like to mention, there are two things, there are two options. One is that the company should have its own research space. So they have their own lab, they have their own setup. Now, in case if they don't have, they have the option to get themselves incubated in any recognized incubator, which can provide the desired infrastructure and other support to execute the project. So both the options are available. Either you have your own research lab, and if not, you should be incubated in any of the recognized incubators. Next slide. Now, once the project has been approved, a project monitoring committee is constituted, and for every release, before every release, you are required to submit a milestone completion report, which would involve the technical details along with the financial documents. So it's unlike other funding institutions where you receive the funds on an annual basis. Here the funds are linked to the accomplishment of the milestone. So there is suppose it's a 15-month study, and after 3 months you are able to achieve one milestone, you become entitled for the next tranche of funds. You don't have to wait for the entire year. So this is very important, and God forbid you fail to achieve the desired target or you fail to achieve the desired milestone, I'm afraid the funds will not get released. So the release of funds is totally linked to accomplishment of the technical milestone. So far as the evaluation of the technical reports are concerned, this is done after completion of each technical milestone, and there are three ways by which we get the report evaluated. Either it is done by the project PMC experts. Usually for each project there would be at least 2 PMC experts, or you would be asked to make a presentation before the technical expert committee, or some of the technical expert committee members or the PMC experts will visit your lab to see the progress of the work. So, depending upon the nature of the project, the committee can take a call how the evaluation of the technical report would be done. Next slide, please. Another 5 minutes. So, this is to give you an idea how the funds are dispersed. 30% of the total project cost is given upfront, and thereafter, if if the duration of the project is more than 12 months, the funds are released in 5 installments of 30, 20, 20, 20, and 10. And if the project duration is less than 12 months, then there would be 2 technical milestones, and the funds would be dispersed in 4 installments. Next slide. Okay, I mentioned to you about the early stage schemes and then the validation done by the through the BIPP scheme. Now, if you have crossed the validation stage and you want to enter the market, then we have got another scheme called Product Commercialization Program Fund, which provides all kind of support, be it financial, it could be even for IP or any support that you may like to have to commercialize an already validated technology. So projects that have already achieved TRL 7 as per BIRAC scale are eligible to avail funding under PCP. Uh, uh, we have already supported quite a few projects in this. More details are available on the BIRAC website. We move on to the next. And here again, funds are made available in various thematic areas. There's no restriction and there is no ceiling on the amount that you can get under the system. Next slide. Okay, besides funding support, BIRAC also provides enabling services for promoting innovation ecosystem, which includes uh, IP support, regulatory support, mentoring, capacity building, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. I'll just touch upon this. We'll not get into the details because it's almost an hour and I want some time for question and answer. Next slide, please. Can we move on to the next slide? Yeah. This is to give you an idea. BIRAC has established more than 50 bio-incubators. So please recollect when I said that if you do not have a research lab of your own, you can get yourself incubated in any of these 50 incubators or even other incubators which have been uh, established by Government of India, by other departments, maybe ICR, Department of Science and Technology, so on and so forth. So it's not necessary that you need to get yourself incubated only in these incubators. It could be any recognized incubators. The important thing is that these incubators should be able to provide you with the desired incubation space, equipment, and the mentoring support. So BIRAC has established 50 of them, which has resulted in creation of more than 5.5 lakhs square feet of space, and till date, more than 650 startups have been incubated or have availed facilities of these bio-incubators set up by the next slide. There are some equity schemes also which are operated through our bio-incubators. The seed fund, which is for early stage, that is here one can get financial support up to 30 lakhs of rupees. Then there is a leaf fund where a startup can get support up to 1 crore. And finally, you have got the ACE fund under which you can get support up to 7 crores. So the funding is not an issue. Funds are available. What is important is that you need to come up with something good. And automatically, like you don't even have to apply. In certain cases, what happens if when you are working under a particular project, under a particular scheme, and the expert committee feels that yes, you have achieved and you are on the right track, they themselves may even recommend you to submit a proposal for the next scheme. So, like it's entirely up to you uh, to take advantage of these various funding options. Next slide, please. Okay, this is something we have already discussed, that right from ideation to stage 2 manufacturing and commercializing, there are funds and various schemes available. Next slide, please. Okay, PATH scheme is something very interesting, which offers a wide range of IP and technology management related services, which includes patent searches, patent drafting, filing, technology evaluation, and even technology transfer. So those who are interested in taking advantage of this scheme may please visit the BIRAC website for more details. Because see, it's very important. Patent is just not meant for protecting your technology. You also need to ensure that when you are deciding on a research problem, you are not violating the patent laws that may be applicable when you are working on a research problem, because at times the applicants are so ignorant, they have no clue, they just feel, yeah, this is an interesting research problem, without realizing that their research idea and the processes that they are going to follow are already under patent. And later on, it becomes very difficult for them, and that's why uh, when we realize that many of the grantees are facing this problem, we have now made it mandatory that any proposal before it is presented to the apex committee is subjected to like serious regulatory issues. There is a special committee which look into all the possible regulatory issues that the applicant may confront with during the course of the study. So all these things are made known to the applicant in advance, and it's only when we are certain that yes, these could be addressed, then only the projects are supported. So both regulatory and IP are extremely crucial. Next slide, please. Okay, biotech help is something, again, I just wrap it up. Or maybe yeah, this is a fairly recent initiative of BIRAC, which gives the opportunity to the researcher and startups to directly interact with the GPT, BIRAC, ICMR, and CDSCO representative to pose their queries on various aspects, may it be regulatory, may it be funding, mentorship, anything they want to address. That they can directly approach. And this first sub meeting is uh, is something that takes place every first Friday of the month. And BIRAC, of course, now things have changed because of COVID. This is not happening physically, but yes, hopefully when the things get normalized, we will again resume that. Otherwise, till such time it is on a virtual. All right, maybe one or two more slides, and after that, I'll stop. There are several other slides, but I think in the interest of time, I would prefer to stop here. Um, what do you say, Shraddha? Should I stop here at this stage? Because I can go on, but time would be a constraint. I think we should keep some 10-15 minutes for question answers. So please tell me, do you want me to continue or should I stop here?
Sanjay, Poini here. Can we take up question and answer first?
Yeah, I think that is more important because so far as the schemes are concerned, I have covered all the schemes that we normally operate.
Right.
There are some other related aspects which may not be of so relevance here in this forum.
And then all the schemes are there on BIRAC website, so they can always.
Sure.
So
if there are
over to
any
you.
specific queries, then I would be happy to address them.
So thank you, Dr. Saxena. We will take up few queries which have been posted in the chat box. So the royalty related query we have already, you have addressed that it is not for perpetual, the limited period, as long as all the grant and aid money has been returned to the BIRAC, the royalty will stop from that point of time.
That's right.
Yeah, the another question is, what is the endpoint for the endpoint of TRL, like for the biotechnology ignition grant scheme?
See, the thing is, it is at the early stage, the ideation stage, to generation of proof of concept. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go beyond that, but that is the bare minimum you are expected to achieve. Even under SIBRI scheme, we say that, okay, it should be up to TRL 6. So when we start working on a research activity, there is a possibility that you come up with faster results and you may go beyond TRL 6. So there's no harm. Nobody is going to penalize you for that. But that minimum level must be accomplished, and this is something which is automatically taken care of when the proposals are evaluated by the expert committee. Because the success rate, let me be candid with you, in all the schemes is hardly 10 to 15%. There is no thumb rule for this. I'm sharing my experience, what we have observed over these years. So if you come out with an average, it would be about 10 to 15%. So if there are, 500 projects proposals received, probability is that 50, 60 of them will eventually get funded.
Sure. There is another question from an applicant, prospective applicant. He has not yet completed the graduation, about to complete in June 2020, but because of the current situation, the exams and the graduation is postponed.
No,
so is he eligible for the BIG?
No.
So for BIG, it is the foremost condition is.
Slide. Can you go to the slide, please? I think if you refer to the advertisement, I put up a picture there. It gives you complete details, so you can visit the website. It gives a complete information about the requirements of the big scheme. What is the eligibility criteria? It is there in the slide, and as we had told you earlier, we would be sharing these slides with you, and you in turn can share them after certain modifications with the applicants. Otherwise, with the participants. Otherwise, also these details are available on BIRAC website for clarification. You can write to the concerned scheme manager. Again, the details given on the website. But I'm pretty sure that if you are not a graduate on the date of submitting your proposal, you are not eligible to apply.
Sure. So it is, so it is necessary that at the time of application, your graduation should be complete.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. There is another question that a person is asking about why is formal education a restriction for supporting innovation?
Well, see, you have to use some yardstick. Now, I'm not saying a person who's not a PhD or MSc cannot be a good researcher. But then, the number of applications that we receive each year in each call are so huge. We have to use some yardstick that whether just because you feel that you are an expert and you would be able to execute, you have the capability to execute the project, you can't convince the committee like this. You have to generate some proof. So when we say proof, in case of academia, it would be, how many publications the PI has published over the last 3-5 years in the related field. So the person may be extremely good, very knowledgeable, but how the committee members are going to evaluate that person? They have got their own limitations. They are not interacting with the PI directly. And during the course of the presentation, also the focus is more on the research problem rather than the PI himself or itself. So I do agree, on this point that the formal education should not be a restriction. But yes, I'm afraid you have to use some yardstick to evaluate the proposal, and certainly this aspect is looked into it, is taken into account. That on records, on paper, does the applicant has that capability to execute that action? Next.
Definitely, sir. I'll request my colleague, Dr. Pranita, to take a few questions from participants.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee and Dr. Saxena, for such an insightful session about the whole process and the overview of the process. I'll take a few questions from which we received during registration. registration process. So one of the question which we received is in BIRAC SIBRI proposal submission, should we provide all details such as protocols, experimental details, raw data, all this is which we have generated during proof of concept studies. Is it necessary to provide these details or just a summary of final results will be suffice?
See, when you get yourself registered and you approach filling up the details in the application form, you would realize that there would be limitation of a space too. You just can't go on filling pages. It's just not permitted. So you have to be concise, you have to be precise, but at the same time, whatever you are writing in the proposal should be good enough that it gives confidence to the reviewers that yes, the person has done something. So you don't have to describe the entire process, but you can focus more on the outcome of the study that you have undertaken in the past, not describing all the details. Maybe, at a later stage, if your project is shortlisted for a presentation and the committee feels that they need to know more details, they can ask you. And this usually happens at the ARP stage. When the proposal is shortlisted for a presentation, the committee members may indicate that these are the points on which the presenter must clarify during the course of the presentation. So, besides a routine presentation that you would be making, of course, there is a set format for that, which we share with the applicant before he or she comes for the presentation. But at the ARP stage itself, before the person comes for the presentation, we inform them that the committee expects that you respond or clarify these 4, 5, 6, 7 points or whatever queries that the committee members may have. But so far as the proposal submission is concerned, at that stage, you need to be precise. There are instances because of the limitation is in the first few lines, 60% of the time of the space is occupied only to describe the problem. You don't mention anything what you have achieved or what you intend to achieve. So you have to be really smart what to reveal, what to share with the committee. Because if you hide too much, the committee will feel that you have not done anything, and at the same time you have to take care of your commercial interest too. So hold some bit of valuable information with you. But
Okay.
for evaluation purposes, do share some data which will, give enough confidence to the committee members that yes, this is a project which is worth considering.
Sure, sir. So there is one more question. I mean, we have already, Dr. Mukherjee, as well as you have already said about that. But since this question we have received from multiple participants, so I'll again ask this question to you, Doctor, that what are the key details or the key criteria the reviewers look into the good proposal? What sort of I mean, the level of information or the depth of information is expected in the proposal, and does the funding agency have strict limitation on total budget?
See, the thing is, in majority of the scheme, we don't have the ceiling. Like in BIP or CRS or SIBRI, there is no ceiling of budget. We go purely by the requirement of the research study. So obviously, if you are planning to develop a vaccine, you can't really come up with a vaccine in a small budget. So it all depends. But if you are working on a small device, yeah, I mean, it depends, like the committee members would see that what are the objectives set for the study, what are the milestones, and to fulfill or to achieve those milestones, what kind of budget and what kind of research activities you would be requiring. So accordingly, the budget is decided. It is not done in an arbitrary manner. The committee would first decide on the milestones and the activities that you will be performing to achieve those milestones. And what would it take to perform those activities? So accordingly, the budget is decided. So there is no ceiling on the budget, But one thing I would definitely like to emphasize, and I did mention this during my talk, that you must talk about the commercial potential of the company. Many times, like people just come there for a presentation. Ours is the best. It may be good. I do agree, but please see what your competitors are doing, what USP you have. See, your product is not going to come out tomorrow. It's going to take you several years before you enter the market. And there might be several other people who might, or researchers who would be working on similar kind of problems. So by the time you hit the market, it might be too late for you. Like there are already several other players. And that way, the committee members are quite well versed with the latest development that are taking place. So it's important, even at the conceptual stage, when you are just working out that you are going to work or you are deciding on a research problem, please look into these aspects, that who are going to be your competitors, and competition not now. It would be 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, because that's the time or the gestation period involved before you hit the market. So you have to take that also into account, that 4 years from now, who would be your competitors? And if something is costing you 100 rupees today, like the competition is very stiff these days. And many a times the information is not in public domain. Not everything is published. So you don't know, if you are working on a particular problem, there might be several others who would be working on a similar kind of problem in other labs for which you have no information or no idea. So, like this homework should be done very carefully, and the commercial potential is second important point. And thirdly, please do indicate in your proposal about the preliminary data that you have generated in support of your present study.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. I think I'll have last question from my side. That is there any information on cross-border grants between like India, US, or any other country from BIRAC side?
See, I made it very clear that this is primarily meant to strengthen the Indian biotech industry, and foreign partners are not entitled to receive grant under any of the BIRAC schemes. So it's not just big or SIBRI or BIPP. Under no scheme there is possibility of any foreign entity being supported by BIRAC. Funds will go only to Indian companies, and that too Indian managed, Indian controlled companies. 51% shareholding is the bare minimum, and that needs to be verified by the chartered accountant through your passport. So you must be an Indian passport holder, even if you have got citizenship of another country, or you are an Indian PIO and all that. That is not taken into account. You must be an Indian passport holder. NRI is also not considered here. See, the whole objective is to support the Indian biotech. Again, I'm reiterating. The Indian biotech industry is what we want to strengthen.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Saxena. And over to you, sir.
Foreign, there are a lot of other agencies like Indo-US Science and Technology Forum, SAPIPRA. Those are agencies where these are government agencies. If you have a US partner, you can approach them. If you have a German partner, you can. These are run by DST, and there are different agencies, endowment funds. There you can target. There are other agencies.
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Yeah.
Over to you, Shraddha.
So, thank you, Dr. Saxena and Dr. Shirshendu, for such an insightful session. I will request Dr. Sonali Tandon from BIRAC investment team. She is a senior manager, to offer a few words of thanks to the participants and today's audience. Dr. Sonali.
Thanks, Shraddha. Thanks, Shraddha. I hope you can hear me. So this gets us to the end of this very good session that we had. I would like to thank both the speakers for their valuable time and inputs, and very importantly, the team at SINE for putting together this wonderful event and for reaching out to BIRAC for this event. So like all the participants here, BIRAC also constantly looks out for such opportunities where we can interact with our stakeholders and spread the word about BIRAC and all the options that are available with BIRAC to support the startup ecosystem in India. So please feel free to get in touch with us for any support and clarifications that you may require. Like Dr. Saxena pointed out again and again, we have a call for proposals open. And after this workshop, I sincerely hope that we'll get very effective grant proposals from the participants here. Also, I would request the SINE team to share your contacts with me so that we can reach out to you and sort of post more information about the call that is on, and look forward to interacting with you in the future. Thank you. Thanks once again to the team at SINE for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sonali. We will certainly send you the list of participants for having us.
Contact details if you could. It would be nice if you could kindly share their email addresses in case if you have them.
Sure,
because
sir.
then we will include them in our database, and like as and when the calls are announced, we would be happy to share our flyers with them.
Certainly.
So that they remain informed about that.
Certainly. So on to this, like towards the end, I just want to have an announcement. Since Dr. Saxena already told that the call for application for BIG grant is open as of now, and it will be open till 15th of September. And BIRAC actually executes BIG grant through the various BIG partners which are across India. And SINE is also one of the BIG partner, and we actually help applicants and the startups for streamlining their application to enhance the prospect of winning the grant. And so like over the period of next 1 month or so, we are going to conduct several of guiding sessions, application help session. Please do attend and get the information from our website related to various other funding opportunities, which is available at a different stage of the startup or the entrepreneur. Yeah. Thank you, all of you. Thanks for joining, and stay tuned to the power of SINE.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.